Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is that you are joining me. Hi, my name is Lindsay. I am a partner success manager here at Supered, and this is our Get Supered 101 camp, training camp, webinar, really whatever you want to call it. Goal of this call is to make sure that you are comfortable with Supered, where everything's located in Supered, as well as with creating cards, organizing bases, all of that good stuff. A couple of housekeeping items before I get started and kind of give some people some time to trickle in. The platform that we use is called Contrast, getcontrast.io. They're a fantastic partner to work with if you are in the market for a webinar service. A little note on how their chat works. There's about a 10-second delay between what you see on your side and what comes over to my side. I'm pretty sure this is for people without ADHD that don't need to be interrupted in their flow, but I encourage questions as we go along. Definitely interrupt me. Don't feel bad if you're interrupting me. Like I said, I've got ADHD, so I like to be interrupted. I hate things that feel scripted. It bores my brain. So if it's boring my brain, it probably is boring you. The other item for housekeeping is this is a little bit interactive. So I do like for you to log into your Supered accounts and follow along as we go, create items as we are creating them. If you fall into the camp of what I like to call the Supered curious, maybe you saw this registration link on LinkedIn, or you're talking to one of our sales guys, you haven't quite signed up yet. It is free to create an account. You will have access to the majority of what we're going to go through today. So absolutely stick around and learn with us. I'm so happy you're here. If you are super curious, you're not talking to one of our sales guys, you see something that helps you, changes your life a little bit. I mean, that sounds dramatic, but it does change lives. Let me know. I'm happy to get you in contact with someone that can get you into being a Supered partner. Okay. Awesome. Let's go. Let's go to Supered. All right. So when you log in, you will be greeted with a home screen. So our home screen here has been customized. So good things to know for you and your teams is you can customize this. So really great use cases for the home screen is, putting in, I have, a little Miro board here. You can put in, important community and events for your team to see. You can put in just important things that you want your team to be working on, all sorts of stuff like that. So you can edit it, add in content panels, add in forms, add in whatever you really want to add in. The limit kind of doesn't really exist. A little Mean Girls moment, right? Right underneath that, we have tasks. This is part of our action plans. Action plans are a brand new Supered asset that has launched. We will be running a camp entirely dedicated to this every 2 weeks, just about how you can create them, best use cases for them. If you are in our training grounds, you have your very own action plan assigned to you, so you have seen kind of how it works, what it looks like, how to navigate them. And again, we'll have an entire camp dedicated to them to go over kind of how to create them. Tasks are a part of action plans. Then we move on into updates. Updates, I think, are criminally underused because I love them. And we'll go into how to create them later in this call. This is just kind of the, tour guide Barbie part of this. What a great character. Anyway, updates are ways to push in-app page announcements, push in-page, not in-app, in-page announcements to your team where they're working as they're working. Use case for this with Supered, how Supered uses it is like our marketing team and our developing team, our engineers will use this when they release like a new feature or marketing needs us to do something for them. We'll push an update to us that will pop up anywhere that we're working. So obviously Supered has Supered active everywhere that we're commonly at. So our G Suite, LinkedIn, all of that stuff. Obviously HubSpot. So those will pop up as we're working with the announcement right then. And we move into processes. Processes is where process rules live. I don't think I'm caffeinated enough yet today, which is wild because it's 10 a.m. I've been at this for like 3 hours today. Anyway, processes is where process rules live. Process rules, again, have their own camp where we dive a lot deeper into them. That happens on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Process rules are ways to really enforce your process within HubSpot. They are HubSpot specific. They are a Supered partner asset. So if you are one of my Supered curious, you probably don't have access to this, but if it is something you're interested in, definitely let us know. We'll get you in touch with a sales guy. Then we move into analytics. Analytics are for you data nerds. It breaks down how Supered is being used, how cards are being used, guides, what's being searched. The search is specific to Sidekick, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. Search analytics also gives you like bad searches. So if you have your team is searching for something specifically, nothing's being yielded, you can kind of see it, be able to really tailor your content to what your team or what your clients are searching for. We have utilization analytics that is based off of who has downloaded the extension that you've invited, if they are engaging, all of that good stuff. Packages, we have, again, a camp for packages. We love camps. We love camp. Where we go over best practices for adding in assets to packages, as well as deploying them, best practices there. The frequently asked questions that we get asked all the time. We have that all in this section right here. What I want you to walk away from this camp knowing is the difference between packages and bases. Because that's the question that I get asked the most as I am training new Supered users is kind of what's the difference there. Packages are your delivery mechanism. That's the best way to come away thinking of them. They're the way that you can deliver to your clients, to your clients. I don't know where that sentence was going. It had great potential, but it kind of died in the middle. And then if you're a Supered partner, you have this partner button here. This is kind of where it houses your managed accounts. So these are your client accounts. It houses your partner packages, which we go over in another camp. Also houses your billing, and then as well as Supered Studio. Within Supered Studio, you do have access to product ideas. So if there's something that you want Supered to do, if you want to see it do, you come into product ideas. My internet's a little slow. Sorry for the load lag. And you can submit your idea here. You can also upvote ones that you see and you're like, yes, absolutely, I want that. You can also access our roadmap. It is publicly facing, so you do have that. All right. Now we're going to focus in on bases. Bases are the housing for your content, right? And what is your content? What do I mean by content? Content is anything that you're delivering to your clients, to your users, to your team. And by anything, I mean, if you have an SOP that you deliver often or that you use often internally, if you have FAQs, if you have training videos, if you have Lucid charts, mirror boards, so truly kind of anything that you want to deliver to your clients, to your team as they're working, where they're working. So to get to the screen that I just am on, I just clicked on the word bases. If you haven't created multiple bases yet, your screen will look just a little bit different than mine. It will just have a couple of cards. There's a Supered default base, and then I can't ever remember the other one. It may just be the one now. Once you have 3 or more bases created, it does give you this list view when you click onto bases. What we're going to do together is we're going to create a base. So there's a couple ways that you can do it. You can hover your mouse over bases and you get this plus sign, which will allow you to create a base, or you can click into bases like I have and hit create base up in the top right. So this is where my naming convention talent does not shine because I don't have that. If you have a specific use case that you want to dive into, if there's a specific kind of base with content that you want to create right away, get that and start delivering it to your users, to your clients, whatever, I would suggest doing that along with me. If you don't quite have an idea of what kind of content that you want to create, that's okay. You can just name it the same way that I do. I call them GS Get Supered 101, and then the date, which is December 3rd. You can give a description to your base if there is a little bit more detail that you want to share with your team. And then these two right here, let's talk about these. These make my scarred millennial heart happy. These make it so you don't have to delete things if you don't want to be seeing them. Hide content and Chrome extension will pull anything within that base out of the Chrome extension, so out of Sidekick. It won't show up there anymore, as well as any triggers that you're creating. And we'll talk about triggers, how to create them, how to get them to show up on other web pages in just a second here. You'll be able to pull them out. Why this is useful. This is useful if you are a Supered partner and you're creating multiple bases for multiple types of clients, multiple niches, things like that. And you don't need to see every single other base you've created. You can hide content and Chrome extension for all those bases, except for the one you're working on. So you only see the stuff that you're working on is active. What does Archive do? Archived is a way that you can hide the base from your active bases. So you can hide it from your Chrome extension as well as the content within Supered's back end is kind of what I like to call it. When you're logged in, I like to call it the Supered back end. So you have Sidekick and then the Supered back end. Archiving makes me happy because I am the person that says, well, what if I need it? You know, haven't used it in 6 months or haven't worn it in 2 years. What if I need it? You know, so you can archive it and that puts it into its own section of Supered. So you still have that content that you created. It's just not live anywhere. And then access control, very briefly, it's just ways that you can add restrictions to who can see the base. If you have further questions on that, definitely let us know over in Super Jam. We're always happy to dive a little bit deeper into it. Super Jam is our Slack community. Okay, all that being said, let's create the space. It'll show up in your list or in your cards, and we'll go into it. Okay, ways to think of structuring a base. I like to think of the base as like your computer file system or your Google folder, your Google Drive system, right? The base itself is like your master folder, and then you can nest folders within it depending on how your organization feels good to you, right? So if you come up to this plus sign, we have these options: card, folder, guide, action plan, right? So nesting folders, you can create a folder and then you can create all the content within that folder. You can have a whole Russian nesting doll situation. For this though, we're just going to create a card. Anytime you create a card without a folder, it just puts it into a no folder structure. So you are able to organize that, rename it. If you find that your no folder is following a theme, you can rename it. All right. Questions so far? I haven't seen any come through. So that's great. I'm going to caffeinate real quick because obviously I need more caffeine, guys. Okay. Card title. Ways to approach card titles is how you title anything, right? I like to do bite-sized 1 or 2 words if you can. You don't want to give the whole farm away. You want to give kind of an idea of what this is. But since I name things so well in my tests and my demos, it's just going to be a demo with the date. And the structure of a card should feel pretty familiar. It should feel like most any word processor that you've ever used, right? So you can put in your rich text. So if you have those SOPs, those FAQs, you can put that rich text within. I even have partners that put in their SOWs into Supered cards so that there's access to it all over the place for their clients and their teams. Where cards get really powerful though, where they get really fun to kind of explore and use is the / command that we have. So you can / on your keyboard and it will pull up all of the different kinds of content that you can insert into this card here. So we've got numbered lists. So these are, your word processor stuff, but then the advanced stuff is where you can start embedding if you have, looms or vidyoids or YouTube videos that you want to embed onto a card to put where your team or your clients are working as they're working. You can put in, iframes. So if it can be iframed, it can be inserted into a Supered card. And then, we have it broken down even more with what kinds of media you can put in. Hint, all of them. I mean, I probably shouldn't say all of them because I'm not a developer. So I'm sure a developer out there is probably like, well, actually, can you do this? It's like, I didn't know that existed. So if you're a layman like I am, all of them, right? You can embed your whatever you need to embed. For now, however, I am going to put in, this is a December card, into the body of my card, right? And to create, quite simply, and there it is. So where does this live now that it's been created? Obviously, it lives in this back end of Supered into this Get Supered base that we've just created, but it also will live over in Sidekick. So if I come in to Sidekick over here, and I search in my bases, just December, it will pull up that card for me. So the way that the search works within Sidekick is it will search title. It will also search the body of the card. So if that word, if December shows up anywhere, we saw a couple of them came up. If that shows up anywhere in any of the cards, it will pull up in Sidekick. Okay. Other useful things when you are using Sidekick is, maybe you need to see if there's like a video or a chart or anything, that's bigger. If you need to see that, you can always pop it open up in the app right here, and it will pull that card as well, go directly to it. All right. So The other cool thing with cards, there's a lot of cool things with cards. The way that you can get it to embed into where your team is working as they're working. So if I came over into my test company right here, we see that we have this little pink guy. This is what I mean by triggers, right? Triggers and embedding a trigger. If I came onto this one, it gives me this content of this card. How do we do that? It's with the trigger. So if I wanted to put this card over into HubSpot specifically, right? You just need to find a word or a phrase that you want it to trigger on. So I'm going to have it trigger on company domain name, because a good use case, good practice for cards and triggers is if you can get as, what is it, detailed? No, focused works. As focused as you can on the trigger phrase, the better time you'll have. I will tell you that if you try to use the trigger phrase contact and you're trying to put it onto HubSpot, you're probably going to have a really bad time because contact shows up everywhere, including in most of the URL structures. So that will either have it fire everywhere or nowhere all at once. So if you can get detailed in your trigger, that's great. When you create a trigger, it will automatically pull the title of the card as its first trigger. So that's quite useful if you're creating cards to define like life cycle stages, if you're using cards to explain automations that are based off of a field, right? So you can put in that and it just sort of does it for you. What did I say ours was going to be? Company domain name. Got goldfish brain sometimes, guys. I don't know about y'all, but there's times that I would lose my own head. See, and I have to double check again. See, I should have just copy pasted. Company domain name. Triggers are not case sensitive, so you don't need to worry about that. They are, however, space sensitive. So if you have a trigger you've created, you know it should be showing up. You know you have Supered active on the web page. Everything is as it should be. Double check that you don't have any extra spaces before or after or in the middle if it's a phrase. Icons. You can change the icon. So a really fun use case that I've gotten from other partners is they have kind of decided what icons mean what internally. So they use the bolt if the field or the, whatever is involved in an automation. So kind of gives a heads up with details of what that automation is, what kicks off when you do the action. They'll use, the info sign is info, right? For a tooltip, things like that, of that nature. So we're going to use the fire sign. If you are a white label partner of ours, you are able to create your own trigger icons, which can be really fun. Okay, so we're going to use fire. We're going to save. I'm going to come back over into HubSpot. We're going to refresh our page. And there is our trigger. So if we're thinking in terms of use cases of real life ways to use this, if you have a specific way that your team or your client needs to be using, domain name for whatever reason, you can create the card that defines that process. If you have specific life cycle stages that maybe are a little bit different for the niche that you are creating, you're building the CRM for, you can create cards with triggers based off of those life cycle stages, kind of what they mean to this company, like the entrance and exit criteria, things like that. I really love using cards to help define like processes like that, to be able to provide the entrance and exit criteria for certain life cycle stages, or really, really like them for embedding next to fields that are involved in an automation. Because I have definitely accidentally triggered automations before within HubSpot where, like 5,000 emails get sent when they're not supposed to get sent. And it really makes it awkward. So if I'd had Supered at that time, I would have been able to see that, hey, this is involved in an automation, double check the card that's embedded next to the field. So you know kind of what's going to happen to you. Yeah, that was a day. It was a great day. Okay. Questions so far? I haven't seen any come through. So I'm just going to keep plugging along. Again, if you do have questions that come up as I'm talking, absolutely go ahead and ask them. That's totally fine by me. Okay. I almost hit end live. That would have been really awkward. Okay. So from here, where do we go, right? Before I move away from bases, I do want to talk just a little bit of best practices of how to organize them when you're creating them, things that I've seen work for other partners. So there's a few ways you can go about it, right? Depending on how you organize yourself, what feels good to you. I have partners that will organize bases based off of the kind of content that's in it. So if they are creating for, HubSpot specifically, they'll have a HubSpot base that's like the beginner HubSpot or intermediate HubSpot or HubSpot cleanup, depending on what they're doing for the client, right? With cards of definition, with cards of their FAQs, cards that define those automations that they're putting in, anything to do with workflows, stuff like that. They'll create those. I have other partners that will create bases that are specific for frequently asked questions. And it's like a live living base that they just put in cards every time they get asked a question from a client or from their own team of how to use something, how best to do something. And then I have my partners that will do bases based off of their clients. So each client has their own base. So again, it is kind of dependent on how you like to organize things. Those are just a few ways that I have seen be successful from our most successful partners. Okay, cool. Let's talk updates. I love updates. Again, like I said, I feel like updates are kind of criminally underused. They're ways that you can push in-page announcements information to both your team as well as your clients. So if we're thinking use case for clients, you create an update that, maybe you're announcing holiday hours for them, that, your team's going to be offline from this date to this date. Submit any questions or, anything that they need via a form that will be taken care of when they come back. Internally, you can use it for, announcing new clients. You can use it for announcing new processes. You can, all sorts of stuff. Ways that Supered uses Supered. Our CEO, Matt Bullion, he will send out like Friday thoughts, right? Things that he's seen that he has liked, things that he's seen that he wants us to kind of work on. Just things like that kind of come up on Fridays, and he'll send those on Fridays, so we get them on Fridays. Again, our marketing and our engineering team is probably the ones that use it the most to just tell us what's new, tell us what they need us to do. So to create an update, you come in, you hit create update, give it its title. And again, I'm sorry, guys, I can't name things to save my life. I just, no. If any of my dogs had to be named when I got them, it would not have gone well. They all came with their own names because I only rescue. So they all come with their names. You can change who it's sent by. So if you need to send it on behalf of like a department, if you're sending on behalf of like people operations to say, make sure that you submit your time cards, or from the C-suite saying, here's your time off and whatever, right? I'm just spitballing. It can also just be sent by you. That's okay. We have two types of display types. We have the pop-up model, which is loud in your face. It's like an iframe little box pop-up, right? And then we have the banner, which is a lot quieter at the bottom of the screen. Personally, I like the pop-up model because, attention. In here, if you're a super partner, you have this tab right here for partner. This is how you can push an update from the partner level account to your client accounts. So this helps if you are announcing, again, like holiday hours, right? We're in that time of year, to all of your clients. You don't have to go into each client account and create that update over and over again. You can just create it once and push it to all of those accounts. Audience is useful if you have something that's only for a specific user or group. So if you have something that only your sales team needs to see, maybe there's, new contract that you're using, there's, updates, whatever, and really only your sales team needs to care about that, you can narrow it down to them. Or you can have it be all users within your Supered account. Days that it's shown, if it's time sensitive, you can have it show for only 2 weeks or a week, a couple days, whatever. Launch date. I really like launch date because you can set it for the future. So you can set it and forget it, especially if you have something that you want your team or your clients to know, like the coming Monday, and you think of it Friday night, you can set it so that it starts for them that following Monday. Come in here and, you give it right here. Thing to keep an eye on, though, is the AM, PM, like with anything, right? If you're setting times you just want to double check that you're putting it for the right time, because you don't want to send an update at like 3 a.m. No one's going to see it. Restricted domains, by default, Supered will show up anywhere that you have it active. If you only want this update to show up specifically like on HubSpot, you can put in that domain right here, so HubSpot.com. You can also do very specific paths as well. Media is honestly where the update gets fun. You can connect a card. So if you have a card detailing any changes, detailing how best to work with you, if there's a change in who their account manager is, whatever, you can put in that card. Media type, you can add a video. This is at the top of the update, and we'll see what that means in just a second. You can also link it out to an external URL. So a use case that I got from a partner that I really like, so I like to share it with y'all, is they like to use updates for their CS team, so their customer success team, their account managers. When their net new sales team will close a deal, they pass it along to CS. They create an update with that client's information as well as their website to that specific CS member that is getting the account, so that customer success agent, that account manager, whoever, kind of can what's the word? Familiarize. Guys, the hamster that runs my brain just died a little bit there. Can familiarize themselves with that account before they dive into that first meeting. And then analytics is to be able to see who's seen it, who's snoozed it. So that's really useful. And you can preview it. So if I have sent this is what would show up anywhere that I have Supered active. It would show up. If I put in a video, it'd be showing up right here. I like to connect a card because instead of complete, having the connected card will show you. Well, let's show you. Let's show you actually what that would look like. Says view card, right? So you can't just complete it out. You have to view the card itself. It will pop open Sidekick and you'll be able to see it there. All right. I'm not actually going to make that go live because I'm the only user really in this account. So there's no point, right? Okay. Let's talk Sidekick, right? All right. I love Sidekick. Sidekick, if you want your users really to only pretty much use Sidekick, like that you don't really need them to pop into the back end of Supered, that's fine. After their first initial time logging in, creating their account, accepting the invite, that kind of good stuff, that's great. I get it. Sidekick houses everything that we just saw. So you have your home base here. So as you are creating a home base, it's good to kind of think of how the flow looks in Sidekick. Well, that's just rude, Lucid. So that they can navigate their homepage. So anything that you find important as they are working, where they're working, you can have that set up here. It will have all of your bases in here as you are creating. It'll have guides, your updates, all sorts of stuff, right? So the cool thing with Sidekick is as you're working, say you're working in LinkedIn or you're working over in HubSpot and you want to create a card, you find a process, you're like, it would be really great if I had a card connected to this. You are able to create cards within Sidekick itself. So when you have it popped open, you can come to this plus sign here and it gives you the options to create a card and record a guide. When you create the card, it brings up our card editor. So as we saw back over in the back end at the beginning of this call, it's the same editor, same way, right? So you can put in the title and the content that you're wanting to put in there and create it. You can also create the trigger directly from Sidekick as well. So it really helps to not interrupt your flow as you're going through. The other way that you can create a card is by highlighting text, right-clicking my share for whatever reason. Oh, and it decided to upload this side. Okay. Well, now we're going to use MapSense. You can highlight text, right-click it. The way that my share is set up, for contrast, you can't see the iframe that comes up when you right-click on text. But if you have Chrome extensions, there is a section of that little pop-up that has all of your Chrome extensions listed. Sidekick's in there. When you scroll down to Sidekick, you can have it search for text or create a card. So if you create a card, it will put that highlighted text as your title. So it really helps with being able to create in your flow of work without interrupting that flow. You can put in the information you need to do and create it. It also gives you the ability to choose which base it goes into. And then if you have multiple folders within that base, gives you the control of where to put that card. Okay. Cool. Questions, comments, concerns? I like to say questions, comments, concerns, hopes, dreams, and plans to take over the world. Because when you ask for questions, you get like programmed responses, which is really fascinating. If that's something you want to look up, programmed responses from people is like, hey, how are you? Good. Even if you're not good, the world's falling apart, you're not good. You still say good because it's programmed. But if you add something in like plans to take over the world, it throws people off enough that you'll get a real answer out of them, kind of like how they're doing. Okay. Cool. All right. I haven't seen any, and I know I was vamping for 10 seconds at least. All right, so we have talked. We've done the tour of Supered. We've looked at all the assets, where they're located. We've talked creating a base. We've talked organizing your bases, adding in folders, how that feels, how that looks. We have talked about some of the better use cases I've seen from partners of how they organize their bases. We've talked updates. We've talked creating from Sidekick. Let's go in and create a guide together. And if the base that you created doesn't show up immediately in the left hand, just reload your page and it'll show up. Okay, we're gonna create a guide. So when we hit record guide, what this is gonna do is it's going to bring up all of the windows you have open, right? So you're gonna go to the page that you're wanting to create the step-by-step on. I'm gonna go to LinkedIn because we're all familiar with LinkedIn, right? Hopefully, I don't know. It's gonna pop us over into that window. And Sidekick's going to open and it's going to give us like our step counter, right? So our first one is going to say navigate to LinkedIn. We're going to give it a couple of clicks. And as I click through, it will give me, what I've just done, right? So the use case for this, if you're thinking about it, is if you are doing something that is very repeatable. So something, within HubSpot, like how to create a workflow, or how to create a contact or company or associate a contact or company to the correct place. Anything like that, right? That you're finding that you're doing over and over again that you think would be useful to have this kind of step-by-step guide with screenshots, all of that. I would suggest that you record a guide as you do it so that you can just send that guide instead of needing to hop on a call and show them again, right? You can just send the guide. Helps cut down time, right? Saves your time. Down here, what these controls mean. So this is how many steps we've done. The check mark is if you're good with what you've recorded. Pause is really useful if you need to navigate to another screen that maybe has sensitive information in it. So like if you are inputting like a password and you don't need it to record those keystrokes, you can pause it. And then it also has the delete, which, if you have decided you don't actually need a guide for this, or you forgot that it's running, I've definitely done that. And so it just keeps recording nonsense, essentially. You can delete it. But what we're going to do is we're going to say yes. And it gives you the option to name it. I'm just going to give it the date so I can easily find it to delete it. And like creating cards from the Chrome extension, you are able to select the base that you want this to go into, as well as the folder within that base. I'm going to create that guide, which will then bring us back over into the back end of Supered. Kick Sidekick out of here. And this is the guide. Editing controls. To edit a guide, hit edit up in the top right. For these just text-based steps, you are able to kind of change what the tooltip says. You can also update the URL. So it will require some form. It will default, so it can't be blank. You do have to have the URL in there. But if it's one of those URLs that has like all of this stuff like at the end there, and you only need it to say go to super.io, you can have it just say that. And then for these screenshots, ways that you can edit to give a little bit more control over what that screenshot is showing. You can move the cursor. So if the cursor itself is kind of in a wonky spot, or it's really obstructing a word that you need them to see, you're able to move that around. You can zoom with your mouse or your trackpad. You can also redact. So if there's any sensitive information, so if you're doing this like on your HubSpot, your CRM, and you don't need your client list to be shown in this process that you're doing, you can redact that information out so that it still shows that process without showing any information you don't want to be sharing with the world. You can hit OK. Last edit tool that you can do is you can delete out steps. So if there's something that's redundant, like this one, a little bit redundant, I don't need it because my screenshot is showing that. then you can delete the step out and save. What the hide guide me button means is it's to hide like in-app guidance. So if it's a very static process, you don't need an in-app guidance to show, you can hide that guide me. What I mean by guide me is I have a client list called Follow the Bouncing Ball Training, because as we're looking at this, we hit guide me and it will pop me over into LinkedIn and it will have my steps guiding me through. And my tour is complete over in Sidekick. I can restart it. I can end it. You know, super fun. Go back into Supered. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. That is Supered 101 quick and dirty. If you have questions, absolutely hit us up over in Super Jam. I'm going to drop the invitation link. If you have not joined us over there, it is a free community. It has a lot of people that like Supered, right? So definitely join us over there. I'm over there. My boss is over there. So if you have questions, you can DM us. We're both named Lindsay. So if you DM a Supered Lindsay, you will get an answer to something. Yeah, the recording will be sent out probably 30, 45 minutes after I end this. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know that there's a lot of pull on time these days, so I really do appreciate you spending the last 37 minutes talking about something that I love. And as always, stay awesome, stay strong, and stay supered. Bye, guys.